The rain had been falling for hours. On the edge of the busy market street, under a broken neon sign, sat a girl with pale skin and silver eyes. Her arms wrapped tightly around a small child, her daughter, both shivering under a thin plastic sheet. No one stopped. No one even looked. Crowds moved quickly, heads down, umbrellas open. The sky was gray, the ground soaked. Vehicles floated past, splashing dirty water near the sidewalk. Shops glowed with food, warmth, and light. But outside, Sevi sat on cold stone. Her child, Lena, was barely 5 years old. She hadn't spoken all day. She was hungry, tired, and weak. Her eyes blinked slowly as raindrops ran down her cheeks. Sevi held her close and whispered, "Don't sleep, love. Just a little longer." She used to wear clean robes. She used to have a job at the Galactic Embassy. She used to walk these same streets with respect. But now, no one saw her as a person, only as trash. She had made one mistake. One wrong word in a translation between two powerful alien ambassadors. It cost them an agreement. Her bosses fired her. Her people disowned her. Now she had nothing but her daughter. And even that was fading. Across the street, inside a warm food stall, stood a human. He wore a simple gray coat, dark pants, and old boots. His hair was messy and a toolbox hung from his shoulder. His name was Lucas Rinn. He had seen her before. Not every day, but often enough to notice. Always in the same spot. Always wet. Always ignored. Something tugged at his heart. He picked up a hot meal from the counter, paid quietly, then stepped into the rain. Sevi saw him coming. She stiffened. She held Lena tighter. "Please," she whispered. "Not now." But Lucas didn't speak. He just knelt down beside them, opened the food box, and held it out. Steam rose into the cold air. Warm soup, soft bread, and a heated drink. Sevi stared at it. Lucas said softly, "It's not much, but it's hot. For the little one." She looked into his eyes. No mockery, no pity. Just calm kindness. "I can't pay," she said. Lucas smiled. "I didn't ask you to." Lena reached out with her small hand. Her fingers touched the bread. Sevi froze for a moment, then slowly, "Let her take it." The child ate like she hadn't tasted real food in weeks. Sevi's hands trembled as she took the cup of soup and sipped. Her lips quivered. Tears ran down her face, but she didn't cry. Lucas sat beside them for a while, letting the rain fall over his shoulders. People walked by and stared. Some shook their heads. He didn't care. After some time, he stood up. "My place is just 2 blocks away," he said. "Dry, quiet, spare room, no rent." Sevi looked up at him sharply. "Why would you help us?" He shrugged. "Because no one else did." She didn't answer. "I'll be back in 10 minutes, he said. "If you want to come, you can." Then he walked away. The rain kept falling. Lena had stopped shivering. She was asleep, curled in her mother's lap. Sevi looked down at her daughter. Her skin was pale. Her breathing was soft. They couldn't survive another night like this. Not like this. She looked in the direction the man had walked. Should I trust him? What if it's a trap? But then she remembered something her own mother once said. When someone gives you light in the dark, don't ask why. Just hold it close. 10 minutes later, Lucas returned. He saw the food container was empty. The cup placed neatly on the ground. Sevi stood slowly, holding her sleeping daughter. Her voice was barely a whisper. "We'll come." Lucas didn't say anything. He just turned and walked ahead. Sevi followed, one step at a time. Through the rain, towards something she hadn't felt in a long, long time. Hope. It had been 5 days since Sevi and her daughter Lena stepped into the small human apartment. The home was nothing special. 1 bedroom, 1 couch, a kitchen that hummed when it boiled water, faint lights, soft old carpets, a cracked window that let the sun peek in each morning. But to Sevi it felt like another world. Because it had warmth, because it had quiet, because no one stared at her like she didn't belong. Lucas Rinn, the human who brought them in, asked for nothing. He didn't ask about her past. He didn't ask why she was in the street. He only asked, "Is she eating okay? Do you sleep well? Do you want more tea?" Scifi didn't trust him at first, but her daughter started to smile again, and that broke something inside her. On the 6th night, while Lena slept on the couch wrapped in a blanket, Scifi stood in the kitchen doorway. Lucas was fixing an old drone on the floor. His hands moved carefully. Quiet music played in the background. "You still haven't asked me who I am," she said softly. Lucas didn't look up. "I figured you'd tell me when you were ready." Scifi lowered her head. "You should know, before someone else tells you." She walked in and sat on the edge of the chair. Her voice was calm, but behind it was weight, pain, buried fire. "I was a senior translator in the Varnell embassy. I handled peace talks between the Milar and the Kazan, two very old enemies." She looked at the wall. "One word, that's all it took. I used a phrase that in Kazan dialect meant consideration. But in Mylar slang it meant betrayal." She swallowed. "The treaty broke within hours. Soldiers died. The council blamed me." Lucas watched her silently. "My own kind called it cultural dishonor. I was exiled. No work, no shelter. And because my daughter had no father, they called her unblessed. We were forgotten." Lucas sat up and closed the drone. "You were punished for a translation mistake?" Scifi laughed. "But it was cold." "No. I was punished because I was born without protection. Because I was easy to blame." She looked away. "People watched me fall. They knew I had a child, but no one stopped it." Her voice cracked. "Except you." Lucas stood, walked to the kitchen, and brought back a hot drink. He placed it in front of her gently. "Well, I don't speak Milar or Kazan, but I know what care means and what dignity looks like." He smiled slightly. "And you've got both." Scifi looked down at the cup. Her hands trembled before wrapping around it. The warmth seeped into her skin, and something else filled her chest. A strange feeling. Safety. The next morning, Lucas went out to buy more food. Scifi stood by the window with Lena in her arms. Lena looked up and asked in her small voice, "Mama, is the human our friend?" Scifi didn't answer right away, then whispered, "I think he's the first one." Later that evening, Lucas came home. He placed 2 large bags on the table. "I found a small tablet for Lena," he said. "Something to draw on." Scifi blinked. "You didn't have to." "I know," he replied. "That's why I did." That night, Scifi stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Lucas was kind. Too kind. No one helped without asking for something. In return, she thought about running again. But then Lena spoke in her sleep. "Papa." Scifi's breath caught in her throat. She didn't sleep that night. She just held her daughter close and watched the door. Because for the first time, she was afraid of losing safety, not of gaining it. But safety doesn't last long on this colony. At sunrise, a message blinked across the old tablet screen. Lucas found it while checking the system. Unregistered alien female located associated. With diplomatic failure categorized. Red surveillance active. Lucas stared at the screen. His jaw tightened. Then, under the message, a handwritten line appeared. "You should have let her starve. Now she's your problem." He shut the screen, then turned toward the kitchen where Scifi and Lena were smiling over a bowl of fruit. Lucas took a deep breath. He wasn't going to let them fall again. The knock came at sunrise, not loud, not angry, just official. Lucas Rinn opened the door slowly. Outside stood 2 figures in dark gray uniforms, colony enforcers, not police, but worse. They didn't answer to morals. They answered to files, tags and clearance codes. One of them, tall and smooth-skinned, held a scanner. "Lucas Rinn," he said, not asking. Lucas nodded. "We have reason to believe you are harboring an unregistered Varnell female and an unauthorized hybrid child." Lucas didn't blink. "You heard wrong." The other enforcer, a half-mech with green lenses for eyes, stepped forward. "We tracked her biometrics to your building. Her presence here is a direct violation of Civic Code 491G. Lucas stepped outside, closing the door behind him. He stood calmly, hands in pockets. "She's not dangerous. She's a translator. She made a mistake. She's got a kid." The tall one ignored his words. "Turn them over. Now. Quietly. This can be clean." Lucas tilted his head slightly. "What happens if I say no?" The mech one smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Then it becomes recorded." Inside, Savi stood frozen behind the door, holding Lena close. She had seen these types before. Back on her homeworld, they dragged women like her out of alleys. She expected Lucas to give up now, to push her out and save himself. She waited for the sound of betrayal. Instead, she heard something else. Lucas's voice, low but steady. "There's no law that says I have to give up someone under my roof without a court notice. And unless you've got one of those, this conversation is over." The enforcers looked at each other. "Do you know what you're risking, human?" Lucas nodded. "Everything." He paused. "Now get off my porch." The two stared at him for a long moment, then turned without a word and walked away. Lucas stepped back inside, quietly closing the door behind him. Scifi stood there, eyes wide. "You lied to them." Lucas shook his head. "Nope, I told them. But they'll come back, they'll report you." Lucas sat down, kicking off his boots. "Probably." Savi stepped forward, voice shaking. "Why would you do that for me?" He looked at her. "Because I remember what it's like to be alone." She opened her mouth to say something, anything, but no words came. Lena peeked out from behind her mother's leg. "Are they gone?" Lucas smiled at her and held out a small pastry. "For the bravest girl I know." Lena smiled, ran up, and hugged him tight. Later that day, the neighborhood changed. A note was left on Lucas's door. "Your food shipment has been delayed indefinitely." Then his job access badge stopped working. Then his neighbors stopped waving. But Lucas said nothing. He just went back to fixing things around the house, setting up a backup power cell, and teaching Lena how to say moonlight in 3 languages at night. Savi found him on the rooftop staring at the stars. She brought him tea. He took it, nodded once. She sat next to him. "You lost your job." He sipped the tea. "Yeah." "Your shipments are blocked." "Yep." "And your neighbors think you're hiding criminals." He smiled without looking at her. "Sounds like a normal week to me." She stared at him for a moment, then said softly, "Back home, no one ever stood for me, not even when I begged. But you stood, without even being asked." Lucas looked at her. Sometimes the right thing doesn't need to be asked, it just needs someone to say no. She looked down at her hands, then whispered, "You'll lose more if this continues." Lucas nodded. "Then let them take it." He finished the tea and stood up. "But they're not taking you." Just then, a beep echoed from inside the house. Lucas walked in and checked his data board. A message had arrived. Subject: Surveillance alert. Category red female detected. Hunters inbound. At the bottom, coordinates of a ship he recognized. It was Varnell made, and it wasn't from the government. He turned toward Savi. "They're not just sending enforcers now." "What then?" "They're sending your kind." Savi froze. She knew what that meant. Hunters. People who didn't care about law, only about restoring the shame of their culture. She backed away, terrified. "I have to run. I have to leave. You can't be involved in this." Lucas shook his head. Too late. He went to the closet and pulled out a dusty duffel bag. "If they're coming, we need to be ready." The night was colder than usual. A strange wind blew through the alley behind Lucas's apartment. It smelled like metal, like a storm was coming, but not the kind that brought rain. Inside, Lena coughed quietly in her sleep. Her forehead was hot. Her hands were trembling. Scifi held her daughter close, wrapping blankets around her tiny frame. She could feel it. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Lucas watched silently from the doorway, his arms crossed, worry etched into every line on his face. "She needs a doctor," he said. Scifi shook her head. "They'll report us the moment they scan her blood." Lucas didn't reply. He already knew she was right. The colony clinics were strict. Alien hybrids without papers were labeled high risk. And high risk meant taken. Lena groaned softly. Scifi's voice cracked. "She's burning up." Lucas walked to a shelf and grabbed a portable scanner. He ran it gently over the girl's arm. Warning: internal infection detected, immune resistance. Low treatment required, Xeron X formula. Restricted substance. Lucas sighed deeply. Xeron X wasn't easy to find, and it wasn't cheap. He looked at Scifi. "I know someone. They sell medical-grade supplies, off the record." Scifi's eyes lit up. "How much?" Lucas didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the back room, opened a metal chest and pulled out a glowing cube. Scifi stared. "Is that your ship core?" Lucas nodded. "Last thing I own that's worth something." Scifi stood slowly, voice shaking. "Lucas, no. That's your only chance to leave this planet, to escape if things go bad." Lucas looked down at the cube. He smiled sadly. "I already made my escape." He glanced toward the sleeping child. "The day you two walked through that door." 1 hour later, he returned with the vial of Xeron X. He injected it into Lena's small arm carefully, slowly, whispering comfort as he worked. Her breathing eased. Her body relaxed. She was still weak, but the fever had broken. Scifi didn't speak for a long time. When she finally did, her voice was so soft it was almost lost in the hum of the wall fan. "Why are you doing this?" Lucas looked at her. "Because you would have done the same." She shook her head. "No, I wouldn't. I was raised to believe humans were cold, selfish, that they only helped when cameras were watching." Lucas chuckled. "You ever see a camera in here?" Scifi smiled for the first time in days. It was small, but real. "You're different." The next morning, Lena woke up. She was weak, but smiling. Her eyes searched the room until they landed on Lucas. "Hi, Papa." Lucas froze. Scifi gasped. "Lena, what did you say?" The little girl blinked. "Papa, that's what he isn't, right?" Scifi covered her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears. Lucas sat on the edge of the couch, gently held Lena's hand. "Only if you want me to be." Lena nodded. "You saved me. That's what papas do." Later, that day, a message appeared on Lucas's door, a clean envelope. No name, just one line inside. "You've been summoned. Human Galactic Rights Council. Testify regarding alien harboring." Lucas stared at the paper. He looked over at Scifi, who was folding clean clothes. He thought about Lena, drawing stars on the wall. Then he turned back to the note. "Well," he muttered, "guess it's time to talk." Scifi looked up. "What is it?" Lucas held up the summons. "They want to hear from me." She froze. "You can't go. They'll trap you, use you to force our location." Lucas folded the paper and slipped it in his jacket. "Then I'll just have to make sure they listen first." Scifi stepped closer. Her hands were shaking again, but not from fear. "If anything happens to you..." He cut her off gently. "I've got nothing to lose. But you and Lena, you're the reason I fight now." He smiled. "Before you two, I was just passing time. Now, I've got something worth standing for." He turned to leave. Savi called after him. Wait. He stopped. She walked up slowly, then placed her forehead gently against his chest, the way her people showed trust. Come back, she whispered. Come back home. Lucas nodded, wrapped his arms around her carefully. Always. The chamber was quiet. Tall, curved walls of metal and glass reflected the glowing symbols of the Human Galactic Rights Council. Inside sat 12 judges from 12 different species, each with cold eyes and colder hearts. At the center of the hall stood one man, Lucas Wren. No lawyer. No guards. No translator. Just a man in a simple jacket and a heart full of fire. One of the council judges, a silvery-skinned being named Ven, leaned forward. You are charged with harboring an unregistered alien exile and an unauthorized hybrid child. You've refused every official warning. Do you deny these actions? Lucas looked up calmly. No. The room stirred. Some gasped. Some whispered. Others simply waited, their eyes blank. Another judge spoke, this one with 3 long necks and a voice like hissing wind. You could have turned them in and received protection. You lost your job, your status. Why protect them? Lucas glanced, up at the floating camera recording the hearing, then back at the judges. Because someone had to. The words echoed through the chamber. He stepped forward. I watched people walk past a starving mother and her sick child in the rain. I saw their faces, I heard their silence, and I realized this galaxy doesn't need more rules, it needs more humans. Another murmur spread through the council. Lucas raised his voice, not angry, but full of purpose. We're not perfect, we mess up, we fight each other, but we don't leave people to die in the dirt. We build homes out of nothing. We protect those no one else will touch. The Zentari judge leaned forward, his eyes narrow. So you believe your kindness justifies breaking galactic law? Lucas took a slow breath. No. I believe your law is broken when it allows children to starve and mothers to be hunted for a mistake. He paused, then pulled a small device from his pocket. A projection appeared above him, a short video of Lena drawing stars on a wall, giggling softly, with Savi watching her with eyes full of peace. You call her child unauthorized. I call her my daughter, and if the law says I'm wrong for loving her, then maybe the law forgot what it was meant to protect. One judge, older, with eyes made of swirling light, said softly, You risked everything. Why? Lucas looked up. Because I didn't want to just survive. I wanted to matter. The silence that followed was different this time, not cold, just heavy, the kind of silence that made people think. Then, a sound from the side. Footsteps. Everyone turned. Savi entered the chamber, holding Lena's hand. A few guards reached for weapons, but the elder judge raised a hand. Let them speak. Savi walked up beside Lucas. She was shaking, but she stood tall. He gave us warmth when no one would give us a glance. He gave my daughter hope when I couldn't give her food. Her voice broke, but she kept speaking. I don't ask for rights. I ask to be seen, to be allowed to exist and without fear. Lena looked up at the judges, then pointed at Lucas. He's my papa, and I love him. One by one, the judges sat back. Some closed their eyes. Others looked away, and finally, one spoke. The elder. You did not follow the rules, but you followed something this council has long forgotten, compassion. He turned to the others. We have a choice to make. For the next few minutes, the council was silent. A decision was being made behind the glowing screens. Lucas stood still, Savi holding his hand tightly. Lena played with his jacket sleeve, humming a song quietly. Then the elder judge stood. We have reviewed the case. The charges are dismissed. Gasps echoed through the room. Savi Varnell is granted protected status. Her daughter is recognized as a citizen of Earth by bond. The judge looked at Lucas. And you, human, are no longer under trial. You are under honor." Scifi fell to her knees. Lucas pulled her up. Lena smiled. "Let this be known," the elder said. "The council does not forget this act. And the galaxy will remember that on a dark road, it was a human who lit the first lamp." The sun rose softly over the colony. For once there was peace. In a corner of Sector 9, far from the main city, Lucas, Scifi, and little Lena stood outside a new home. It wasn't big, it wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. A small house with a solar roof, a garden plot, and windows that opened to the wind. The council had granted it to Lucas after the trial, calling it a gesture of gratitude. But to Lucas, it wasn't a reward, it was a beginning. Inside, Scifi was organizing shelves with simple things, spices, cups, hand-woven towels. Her movements were calm, but her eyes were full of something she thought she'd never have again. Belonging. Lena sat cross-legged on the living room floor, humming while she drew pictures. Her crayons moved in circles, stars, moons, suns, and 3 stick figures holding hands. She had drawn them again. Mama, Papa, me. Lucas stepped outside to check the solar panel. The wind felt clean today. He took a deep breath and thought, it's finally over. But peace rarely lasts in places where shame turns into revenge. That night, while the family slept, a shadow moved near the house. A small device was planted beneath the porch, quiet, glowing, ticking softly. 2 figures in dark cloaks walked away without speaking. One of them whispered in a harsh voice, "Let him feel what it's like to lose what cannot be replaced." The explosion happened just before dawn. It wasn't large, designed not to kill, but to ruin. The porch shattered. The front wall collapsed. Flames rose into the sky like claws. Inside, alarm screamed. Lucas jumped from his bed, grabbing Lena from the couch as glass rained around them. Scifi pulled the emergency shield over them as they crawled out. The house they built, the home they loved, was turning into ashes. Outside they stood barefoot, smoke around them, flames rising behind. Lena clung to Lucas's chest, shaking. Scifi stared at the burning house, her hands trembling. "Why?" she whispered. Lucas held them both close, jaw tight. He knew why. Not everyone accepted the council's decision. Not everyone wanted peace. Some only wanted to erase what didn't match their vision of the world. Later that day, officials came. Droids, clean debris. Neighbors whispered from windows. Scifi watched silently as the garden she planted was turned to ash. Lucas didn't say much. He just watched the workers and thought. That night, as they rested in a temporary shelter, Lena asked softly, "Do we have to sleep in a box forever now?" Lucas looked at her, heart aching. "No, Starseed," he said gently. "We'll build again." Scifi turned her face away. She didn't believe it, not this time. But the next morning, Lucas left early. He went to a junkyard, then to an old station, then to 3 neighbors who still owed him favors. By the end of the day, he had tools, boards, screws, insulation foam, wire coils. And when Scifi woke the next morning, she saw him, out in the ashes, hammering beams into the ground. She stepped outside slowly. "What are you doing?" Lucas wiped sweat from his forehead. "Building. Again." "Why so soon?" He didn't stop working. "Because if they wanted us to quit, they should have burned the ground too." Scifi stood silently for a long time, then walked over and picked up a board. "You're not doing it alone." By sunset, others began to arrive. One of Lucas's old co-workers, the Thesari woman from the market, even a young alien boy who once mocked Lena, now stood beside her, handing her nails. One by one, hands came forward, not out of pity, but because someone had stood up. First, by nightfall, the frame of the new home stood, unfinished but strong, and for the first time since the fire. Scifi smiled. "They tried to burn our home?" Lucas nodded. but they only lit the fire inside us. That night, they slept under stars with no ceiling above them. But they weren't afraid. They were building more than walls. They were building a future no one could burn down. The new house stood tall under the rising light. Not just one sun, but two. The main star of the colony had always shone brightly. But now, another smaller sun had arrived, reflecting from a satellite mirror placed by one of Lucas's old friends. It bathed the house in warm, golden light, symbolic, because this wasn't just a rebuild. This was a beginning. 6 months had passed since the fire. The porch was rebuilt. The garden was green again, and the community that once whispered from behind windows now stopped to wave, smile, and offer help. Lucas stood on the roof adjusting a solar panel. Down below, Sevi poured tea while Lena helped set the table with her little hands, placing mismatched cups and plates with pride. It was morning. But not just any morning. Today was naming day. The Human Galactic Council had offered something rare, a ceremony of recognition. For the first time in the colony's history, a human, an alien, and their hybrid child would be honored together. Not for war, not for politics, but for building something better. Lena wore a hand-sewn dress made of 2 fabrics, one from Earth, one from the Varnell culture. She held a flower she had picked from the garden. Her smile glowed brighter than both suns above. "Mama, do I have to say anything?" she asked. Sevi knelt beside her. "Only if you want to. But remember, everything you say comes from 2 worlds. That makes it special." Lucas walked in, wiping his hands with a cloth. "All right, girls? Ready to go make history?" Lena giggled. "Only if we get dessert after." He laughed. "Deal." The ceremony was held in the colony's central park, an open field with banners of every species flapping in the wind. Hundreds came. Humans, aliens, families, workers, children. They didn't come for speeches. They came because something had changed. They had seen what one man could do and what one act of kindness could grow into. A council elder stepped forward holding a small silver book. He looked at the 3, Lucas, Sevi, and Lena, and spoke, calmly. "There is no law that says a human and an alien must be family. There is no rule that says a child must belong. But there is truth, and it says this is what home looks like." He handed the book to Lena. "This is your story now." The crowd clapped. Quiet at first, then louder, and louder, until it felt like the whole colony was applauding not just the family, but the idea they stood for. That night, under both suns, the family sat on their new porch watching the stars blink to life. Sevi rested her head on Lucas's shoulder. Lena leaned into her mother's lap, half asleep. "Do you ever miss Earth?" Sevi asked softly. Lucas smiled. "Sometimes. But Earth didn't make me who I am." He looked at her. "You did." She reached into her pocket and pulled out something, small. A ring, crafted from 2 metals. One from a Varnell ship panel, the other from Lucas's old tool set. "We don't have weddings in my culture," she said, "but we do have promises." Lucas blinked. "Is this what I think it is?" Sevi nodded. "Only if you say yes." He chuckled. "I've been saying yes to you since the day you stole my soup." They laughed, they cried, they held each other under the stars, and Lena whispered sleepily, "This is the best planet." Lucas smiled. "That's because we built it that way." Months later, the house with 2 suns became known across the system. Refugees came. Families from different species, outcasts, children no one claimed. They all found a place because the house kept its doors open. Lucas became a teacher, Sevi, a peace mediator, and Lena. She became a symbol of unity, not a princess, not a soldier, just a child who was once cold and hungry and now full of light. In the garden, a sign stood beside the entrance. It read, "This is a home. You don't need to look like us. You just need to be kind." And high above on a colony satellite, A message was broadcast in over 300 languages. He was just one human. But that was enough.